we should not forget to continuously celebrate our successes in the movement. And obviously there is so many things that we could point out tonight, so many amazing projects that have been happening in the past few years, so many amazing activists out there working on great ideas all around the world. So in preparation of this session, we really didn't even know where to start. There is no way we could give out awards to every incredible campaign and idea and innovation that came up in the past few years, but we do want to show you some of the things that have been going on. Michael, you ready for this?
I'll do my best. I will do my best.
All right.
So I spoke to a handful of people in the exhibit hall today, some sponsors, and just asked each of them to tell me one thing that they were proud of that happened in the last year, maybe even 2 years in some cases. And here is just a sampling of what I got. And like Julia said, there was just no way to get through all of them. But Gen V and VFC got 50 million views of chicken farm cruelty in the UK, showcasing the truth of what KFC actually does. And Anima International has had many victories against the fur industry and has a promising chance to ban it at the EU level. Apex has launched a backyard slaughter campaign, which is their way of including non-vegans of color in animal advocacy. Animal equality has secured Mexico's first protections for animals, and now is a chance to get it in the Mexican Constitution. The Aquatic Life Institute has numerous landmark victories, including Canada's first ever animal welfare code for salmon, trout, and char. Animal Outlook and others have launched the Farmer Transition Blueprint to give a map for how farmers can move away from animal farming and towards plant and mushroom farming instead. Mayor Adams in New York, the Better Food Foundation, and others have made the default veg program so successful that every public hospital in New York City is using default veg. 50% of people are choosing veg now in every New York hospital. A Well-Fed World hit $12 million historically in grants for small and medium orgs across the globe. The Afro-Vegan Society launched the first ever Black vegan activist training program. Casa Vegana launched Fiona relief meal sharing so that those affected by the hurricane in Puerto Rico can get fed throughout this crisis. Direct Action Everywhere introduced a moratorium on factory farming and animal slaughter, which, though not yet successful, has raised the political conversation on these vital issues. The Humane Society and others secured cage-free protections in Utah, Nevada, and several other states for the first time. Mercy for Animals was able to showcase the true horrors of factory farming with drone footage in the Midwest, in addition to a myriad of other footage they were exposing across the globe in the last 2 years. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals had so many vivisection in particular victories, including this one where Air France committed to stop transporting monkeys across the globe for lab experiments. ProVeg International was able to get plant-based food at the COP meetings for the first time ever at the UN level. Climate Reform was able to get plant-based considered in carbon pricing and offset schemes so that people who want to reduce their footprint now realize that plant-based is a vital part of that solution. Wild Animal Initiative got the first ever research re-granting so that we can truly understand the scope of wild animal suffering and what the interventions might possibly be down the line. And the Humane League and the Open Wing Alliance got 50,000 locations, every Yum location in the entire globe, to commit to their cage-free policy. That's every KFC, every Pizza Hut, and every Taco Bell. So those are just like a couple dozen of the victories I was able to talk about with y'all today as I attempted to imagine how we would even sequence this. But we also, last night, were sent a little victory and unity message that you might have heard a little bit about.
I just went to court and took on Big Ag, Smithfield, and even the FBI, and I won. But we had a secret weapon that no one's talking about.
And that is a movement that was unified. This victory is not just mine, it is yours too. Because so many voices came together across an entire movement to defend the right to rescue animals from factory farms. That includes Princeton's Peter Singer, Ingrid Newkirk at PETA, Gene Bauer at Farm Sanctuary, even Lewis Ballard at the Open Philanthropy Project. And when a movement is unified, it's strong. But the industry understands this, which is why they want us to fight with each other. In fact, there are entire organizations like the Center for Consumer Freedom and Protect the Harvest that focus on trying to divide and conquer animal rights activists. This has been used in history too. The FBI, when they were trying to shut down the civil rights movement, they tried to get people to turn on Martin Luther King Jr. We can avoid this if we work together. So my request to all of you is, instead of spending time bringing other activists down, let's lift each other up. Let's try and work together, because if we work together, we will be strong.
Yeah, it has been it's been a trying few years for all of us, hasn't it? I think it's been a difficult few years in some ways for the animal movement. It's been a difficult few years for everyone. And one thing that Julia and I talked a lot about as we were thinking, is there a mission or a theme of this conference? Are we just getting people in a room? Are we going to learn? We're going to do, everything we can, but we thought a lot about the fact that we really needed to bring everyone back together and make sure that even if we're disagreeing, we're doing so healthily, and that we're doing so productively and in a way that unites more than it divides. And so I've seen basically no nastiness, no pettiness this whole weekend, which I cannot say of every animal event I've been to. So can you all please give it up for yourselves? And we've got a couple special guests tonight. There is one really cool thing that happened this year. I think a lot of you would have seen it. There was some national press for some of the least noticed, least advocated for, least recognized of all the beings on the earth. And we're going to show you a little clip that you might have already seen go viral.
So many different points of view, and it's all because we're connected on social media. You've built up quite a following as someone who is a passionate animal rights activist. Mm-hmm. And this documentary in particular is one where some people are shocked because they go, wait, Ryuji, you've gone too far. You're saying that fish can be conscious.
Yeah. Yeah, so the thing is that growing up, I didn't think this, right? I think like many people, I grew up to think that fish were these stupid, unconscious animals who have a 3-second memory and can't feel pain. Uh-huh. And that would have been fine, forgivable if I was like in 1703. But the thing is that today, there is a mountain of evidence produced through years of research that suggests that fish feel, think, and suffer like dogs, cats, and other animals.
It's interesting that you say that because, when we think about the world we're living in today, there's no denying that we have to change the ways we think about our food. Mm-hmm. There's no denying that it's becoming unsustainable. It's also terrible in the way that we treat animals. We're just trying to make the world a better place. Yeah. Now, many people will say, I can't be vegan, but I am a vegetarian. Yeah, some people say, well, I'm not that, but I'm pescatarian. Sure. And I can eat fish because I don't like how everything else happens. Sure. But now you've basically come in and you've upended that whole thing. Because there are many people who are like, well, I'm good, I eat fish. And you're like, well, you're not as good as you think.
Well, it's not about judging people and saying you're not as good as you think. Uh-huh. It's more about thinking about it from the animal's perspective. So the reason that I'm vegan, for example, is because I just...
And as I think many of you have pieced together by now, we do have in the house tonight Mr. Ryuji Chua.
Hello? Hi. How are you guys doing? So as you've seen on the program, my name is Peter Singer. Nice to talk to you all. I'm just kidding, Wayne Shung, nice to meet you. So when people see this, the first thing that people often ask me is, so how did this come about? And my answer is, do you know? Because I have no idea. What happened is that I made a documentary, or let me just back up. I made a YouTube video. It's called How Conscious Can a Fish Be? Which, by the way, is an atrocious title. I hate it. And the reason I hate it is because on YouTube, if you know anything about it, the most important thing is what's called this click-through rate, right? It means out of 100 people who see your thumbnail and title, how many people will click. That video has an atrocious click-through rate. It's a piece about fish and about their consciousness, their intelligence, their capacity to feel pain. And I made this because, as all of you know, fish are some of the most exploited animals in the world. In fact, in terms of numbers, they're exploited in larger numbers than any other animal. If you take land animals, the animal that's exploited the most is chickens. The number of chickens we kill every year is about 10 times the current global population. But for fish, even a conservative estimate of how many fish we kill every year is 17 times the number of humans who have ever lived. And both culturally and legally, we protect them the least from cruelty and suffering. So I thought it was really important to try to make something that would address the issue of how we treat fish. But before that, I thought it was important to address their stereotypes, because we often see them, at least for me, I grew up to think that they're these stupid, unconscious, primitive animals who are barely conscious and can't feel pain. But it turns out that that's not true. And I've heard a lot of people say, and I've said this in the past too, that studies show that fish feel pain. But if someone asked me, what are those studies? What evidence are you pointing to? I had no idea. So what I did is I tried to understand that evidence. And after I understood it, I was like, I wish more people would know this. And so I made a thing about it. And that's what Trevor saw, and that's what led him to invite me onto his show. So that's the story in a nutshell. Now, although this looks incredible, and I'm so grateful that this happened, one thing I really want to stress is that this is a victory for all of us. And the reason I say this is because I wouldn't have been able to do this without a lot of people who are in this room. A lot of people outside this room too, but a lot of people here right now. And I was thinking about, what am I going to talk to you all about right now? And what I thought was, I can talk to you about a lot of stuff that you already know. I advocate for animals to a more general public, but you already know all the talking points. You know everything that I know. I was thinking maybe I can try to give you some advice. But there are a lot of people in here who've been fighting for animals for longer than I've been alive. And I'm like, well, what am I going to teach you? I don't know. And a lot of people here solving problems that to me seem insurmountable. Problems like, how do we transition a chicken farmer to grow mushrooms? Or how do we build an academic field for wild animal suffering? How do we secure the right to rescue? I think about these questions, these problems, and I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. I just sat on a chair and said some things, so what am I going to share with you? I'm not sure. But what I decided to do is to tell a little bit of my story and talk to you about how my story is connected to a lot of the people in this room today. And I want to talk to you about this because the reason that I was able to be there and have this conversation with Trevor was because of those people. So I became vegan in about 2015, not in about, exactly in 2015, as a matter of fact. And one of the first things I did is I wanted to learn more about the industries that exploit animals. And I remember at the time, I just moved into a new apartment. I was a sophomore in college. And so I was sitting on the floor of my apartment. There was no furniture, and I was doing all this Googling. What happens in the egg industry? What happens in the dairy industry? And what website do I come across but Farm Sanctuary's website? So the Farm Sanctuary people in the room right now, I don't know if you're here, over there? Yeah. So I saw the Farm Sanctuary website, which back then was very green, and they just had these pages about all the industries talking about what happens to animals. And that's one of the things that pushed me over the edge, and that convinced me that I wanted to dedicate my time and energy and life to this cause. On top of that, they showed me for the first time that these animals can live out their lives and they're individuals, that there's a place where they're rescued and they can live out the rest of their lives. And so I made it a goal to go to Farm Sanctuary, and that was actually the first sanctuary I ever went to, and it was the first time that I connected with farm animals, which was a huge step for me. Now, a little bit later, the next semester in fact, I studied abroad in Japan. And this was shortly after I became vegan, and I hadn't done any activism so far. But when I was in Japan, I decided, I want to do something. And so I met my friend Haruko, who's right there. Get up for her. Yeah, so she runs this incredible organization in Japan called Veggie Project Japan. And I volunteered with her. And I remember we went out and we did these surveys and we talked to people and we were trying to gather data so that we could pitch the idea of vegan options to restaurants. And that was the first time that I felt like I was doing something to help animals. And that really empowered me to go further. Now later, after I graduated, that's when I really got my act together. I was like, I'm going to do something. And the first ever event I went to was a pig vigil in Los Angeles. Now, the organizer of the pig vigil is Ellen, who was here. She is no longer here. She abandoned me, so she's not here. But I'll tell you a quick story. So the first vigil I went to, I was terrified. And what happened was that I drove there, and if you've ever been to the vigil in Los Angeles, the slaughterhouse is huge. It's like this thing is like a whole block. So first of all, I didn't know where to park, and I blamed this on Ellen because she didn't put the parking information. So I parked really far, and I sat in my car, and I thought to myself, I don't know if I can do this. I feel so nervous. I've never been here before. I don't like going to events alone. I don't know anyone, and I don't even know where the meeting point is. I mean, like, I don't see anyone. I don't know where I'm supposed to walk. But finally, I decided, no, I drove like 40 minutes, sunk cost. I'm gonna go. So I got out of my car, and I went to the event. And there I met some of the most incredible people ever. In fact, eventually, I met Rain, who is my girlfriend right there. And that day, I also met some activists from Toronto. Oh, and by the way, also, I don't know, is Anita here? Anita, are you here from the Safe Movement? Yeah, right there. So she started that whole thing. At the Safe Movement, I met some activists from Toronto, and they randomly told me, hey, we're going to the Animal Liberation Conference next week. Do you want to come? I'm like, what is the Animal Liberation Conference? They're like, oh, is this like big like animal rights conference? And I'm like, I don't know, I just graduated, I have nothing to do here. Yeah, I'll go. And so what I did, I remember this like it was yesterday. I decided on a whim that I would go, and what I did is I went on my Instagram story, and I was like, hey, I'm going to this thing, like, does anyone want to come, like, drive up with me? And no one responded. So I had to drive alone. And on the way, I was listening to Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, who's also right there. And I'd actually read it before. It was one of the first books I read when I first became vegan, but I decided to listen to it again, and it was great listening on the way. And then I got to the Animal Liberation Conference, which was organized by the folks at DXC. So I know Almira is here. I don't know if some other DXC people are here, but that was all thanks to them. And also one special shout out to Wayne, who is not here tonight. Wayne was, the lead organizer at DXC at the time, I believe. And what happened was that during the conference, I was walking outside, UC Berkeley, and I saw Wayne, and I was like, oh, hey Wayne, nice to meet you. And he actually stopped, and he took the time to talk to me. Now, he must have been so busy at that event, and he still took the time to say hi and talk to me and let me know that, hey, if you need anything, let us know. That's what we're here for. And that moment was so special to me. Because one of the things that I felt was that, before when I was vegan and I wanted to get active, it didn't seem to me at the time like there were people who looked like me, who were leaders in the movement. And when I saw Wayne, that was the first time that I thought, hey, maybe as an Asian guy, I can also be someone in this movement and do something for animals. So that was really an incredible moment, and I'm really grateful for Wayne. Now, at that conference, I met many people who I think I'm still friends with, I hope. Steven, I don't know if Steven is here right now. He's right there, but I remember meeting Steven and Megan also, who's right next to him. And and he was one of the first people that I met that worked in an animal rights organization. I think he worked at MFA at the time, if I remember correctly. And I don't remember exactly what he was doing, but what he sounded like was just basically typing numbers in an Excel sheet. And I was like, you can do that to help animals? That's incredible. And I had no idea. Data analyst or something, I don't know, I have no idea. And then I also met a Rowdy Girls Sanctuary, or Renee King Sonnen from Rowdy Girls Sanctuary. I don't know if Renee is right here. Are you here, Renee? I don't know. Right there. Yeah. And Renee, after I met her, I went to her sanctuary and I started working with her. And I started making videos for her social media. And that was actually my first job in the animal rights movement. It was the first time that I was able to actually do this full time, was working with Renee. So the list goes on and on. There are so many more people that I met here that have really, really supported me through my journey. There's also David has a wonderful organization called the Vegan Hacktivists, and he reached out to me a long time ago. Yeah, shout out to David, come on. And he helped me with a lot of tech stuff back then, because that's what he does, So, anyways, the reason why I say this is because it's thanks to each and one of these people. And that's not an extensive list either. There are many more of you here that I know, and there are many people outside this room who have also supported me in my journey. But it's thanks to all these people that this was able to happen. And so I wanted to tell those stories to remind you, or to remind myself also, that this is a team effort. That we're all in this together. And I'm so grateful for you. I was thinking about this last night and I was crying like while I was thinking about it. And I was like, I thought I got it all out, like what's happening? Jeez. But no, I'm so thankful for you. And I know that all of us here, we're here for the animals, and we're gonna not stop fighting until we get what they deserve. And there's no one else that I'd rather be doing this with. Thank you so much.
You know what? Besides all of these amazing victories that have been celebrated in the press and that got a lot of media coverage and attention in the past few years, you all have got so many stories to tell as well. So throughout the planning phase of this conference, we have received hundreds of emails of people who, from all over the world, who were applying for travel stipends to be able to join this summit. Between us, this may or may not have been the reason why Michael and I were very slow to respond to some emails, so sorry about that, I do apologize. And because reading through all of these emails and really personal stories that people shared in their applications made us really emotional, we realized how many amazing activists are out there in the world working on this cause and fighting, and we decided that it's time to celebrate all of you, and all of you have traveled the world to get here, and to give everybody an idea. This is again where everybody is. 47 different countries are in this room tonight. Yes, that is amazing. Amazing. And to give everybody an idea about your dedication, about the types of projects that you're working on and the kinds of ideas that you have for the future, we will share some quotes of these applications that we received from everybody. And I hope the rest of the audience will feel as emotional about them as we did. So now I would like to welcome on stage our wonderful volunteers, Tomori, Shweta, and Linda, who agreed to read out some of these quotes from people that are sitting right here in the audience amongst us tonight, and who do really amazing work in their respective countries. So let's listen to those. Thank you so much.
My ultimate life goal is to stay in the farmed animal protection movement and to change the way farmed animals are seen and treated in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
I'm a recent industrial food engineer, and even before graduation, I already knew I wanted to dedicate my life to the alternative protein space. I firmly believe that scientists and engineers should work together to make the shifts our food systems so desperately need.
I have worked at pig farms, chicken farms, a dairy farm, and more. I have also spent significant time with trappers and at zoos as part of other investigations. Now, I train investigators and hope to do more recruiting to help organizations who want to do the most good with this important work.
I've been committed to animal welfare and animal rights for the last 10 years of my life. Knowing the situation of different species of non-human animals, how they are treated in Ecuador, and the lack of protection they get from the state, compelled me to learn more and help organize the animal protection movement in Ecuador in a much better way.
Nepal is on the front lines of climate change, with 1.9 million people being highly vulnerable to climate catastrophes. My team and I seek to expand our research and knowledge to address food security as a primary concern in our work, and that's why we're here.
As an attorney, I'm developing and lobbying for strict laws that protect farm animals in Zimbabwe. My goal is to educate more people to consider meat alternatives and reduce animal suffering.
I elevate the important work that African animal advocates are doing to help animals so that the international movement can channel more resources toward neglected geographical regions.
I suffer from a chronic autoimmune disease, which is disabling in my work and everyday life. Yet, research and advocacy to transform the policies, laws, and attitudes governing the treatment of other animals is paramount. This is my calling.
Currently, I work for the Peruvian government in the Department of Innovation and Technology, and I'm founding a new nonprofit aiming to work in corporate transformations for the animals in South America, Perú. Actualmente trabajo para el gobierno peruano en innovación y tecnología y estoy fundando una nueva organización non-profit por los animales para transformar las empresas en Sudamérica, comenzando en Perú.